So on this fourth edition of Voices, Embassy of India and BP Koirala India Nepal Foundation warmly welcomes all of you. It is such a great pleasure to have with us today Professor Chandra Mohan in this edition of Voices. Many of you already know this, that we started the monthly talk program Voices in Nepal Bharat Library to create an environment where professionals from different walks of life can come together and share their ideas, their journey to being, their journey, and inspire the audience while also interact with them after they share their experience. This is in addition to our monthly programs, Conversations, Cinemandu and Poemandu. We started Voices with a talk program by eminent Indian photographer Raghu Rai. In the second edition of Voices, we had eminent journalists of Nepal, Kunda Dixit and Narayan Wagle, speaking on media in Nepal and South Asia. In the last edition of Voices, we had with us two editors of the largest daily of Nepal, Kantipur, and the Kantipur Daily and the Kathmandu Post, Sudhir Sharma and Akhilesh Upadhyay. Today we have with us Professor Chandra Mohan, who is currently an advisor, International Higher Education, Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. He has also served in the same capacity at the University of Jammu. Professor Mohan Chandra taught English and comparative literature at the University of Delhi and several other international universities in US and Canada. He has held the position of President of Indian Association of Canadian Studies, Vice President of International Comparative Literature Association, USA, and at present he is the General Secretary of Comparative Literature Association of India. So, more about him: he was awarded the Senior US Fulbright, Commonwealth and Canadian Research Fellowships. He has a large number of publications to his credit in the areas of English, comparative literature, diaspora studies, travel and indigenous literature, cultural and post-colonial and interdisciplinary studies. The latest being the Women and Development, Self, Society and Empowerment. He has been entrusted with his team to work on research project on literary and cultural interrelationships in India, its neighboring countries and the world by the International Comparative Literature Association, US. We are very pleased to have you, Professor Chandra, here, and we would like that everybody gives him a big round of applause. First of all, to accept our invitation at a very short notice, and secondly, to come all the way from India to talk to you. Thank you, Professor Chandra.
Should I come here or here? You can speak from here. You can speak. This is okay?
Thank you, Agatha. This program will roughly be of an hour. So, and then the interaction will follow. Professor Chandra will be speaking on literary and cultural interrelations in the South Asia.
So, I am supposed to speak for 30-40 minutes? First of all, I must compliment Abhay Kumar that in such a short time, everything has been arranged. Only 2 or 3 days back, I just happened to call him because my friend Vijay here told me that he is seeking an interview with him here during my visit. And then, as a very, what we call, good organizer and also able officer, he tells me, why don't you come and address us? I said, I come here for a vacation because we have just come back from France after taking a delegation of about 50 scholars from India, and we did a very good work there. We made an impact of Asia on the Western civilization. Then he said, it's okay, it's fine, and we would love to have you. So thank you, Abhay, for very swiftly arranging this whole thing. Now then I discussed with him, what can I do for this evening? Then we agreed that we can talk about a common intelligible program which can go across the students, teachers, and other members of the audience. I thought that these days we are all focusing our attention on South Asia. It is coming to us in 2 ways. The first way is that South Asian continent is a part of Indian continent, which has a history of over 5,000 years. Then the most important thing which has come up these days is that South Asian continent has taken the shape of SAARC. SAARC means South Asian region, which includes 8 countries, and which are number 1, Nepal, where we are sitting. Then after that comes India, from where I come. Then it comes Afghanistan, then Bangladesh, then Bhutan, then Maldives, then Pakistan, and then Sri Lanka. Now, why this whole thing came up? That was a very important question. People said that for the last so many centuries, Asia has been neglected. We have been ruled and overruled again and again by the West. We have forgotten completely what is the strength of India, or what is the strength of Nepal, or what is the strength of other adjoining countries. Do we just depend on the West, or do we have our own intrinsic importance? With this mission, all these 8 governments of different countries, who are of course united, some of them, for instance, India and Pakistan was one. Similarly, Bangladesh was also a part of Calcutta. So all those decided that we have so many commonalities. We can work together. We can have our own identity felt in the whole of the world. Why shouldn't the world listen to us? Why we should be just dwelling on others so that they come and we only see through the prism of the West? That was not the right thing to do. So I'm very happy that today, in the year 2013, when we are addressing this question, does South Asia has its own identity, its own civilization, its own strength, its own future? I'm very happy that this realization has come through, and all the governments of these countries have come together and formed a unit which is called SAARC, S-A-A-R-C. And you go to our embassy here, you will get the material. You come to India, you will get the material. Rather, I'm pleased to tell you that the first university of SAARC countries has been established in New Delhi. It has been established right near the area located in Qutub Minar, but its office is right near Chanakyapuri, India Hotel. And there, Professor Chadha is the Vice Chancellor, and they have a wonderful library. They invite applications for fellowships, for doing so many other related investigations in this area. So those students to whom I was talking right now, they will be welcome to come or apply for further related research which they can opt for that. So this is one thing which I thought I should tell you before I begin my lecture. Now, let me begin by making a reference to 4 civilizations which have been called the major civilization in the world. And these are called cradles of civilization. And these are called the East to West, that is China, Indian subcontinent, which is a part of South Asian continent, the Fertile Crescent, and the Mediterranean, which includes Greece and Italy. Now, out of these 4, let me tell you with a sense of pride that the most fertile civilization is South Asia. The others have come and gone. Egypt was equally important, but Egypt does not exist anymore in the manner, in the same way as India exists or Asia exists today. Because Asia has kept its tradition. Asia has kept the old culture, and that is perhaps the right thing to preserve. And therefore, those who came to this subcontinent, rather I must say particularly Mughals or whosoever came, or even when the English people came, they felt that they should contribute something related to it. And they felt a fancy for it. And they worked so much that they analyzed, they what we call completely became one with the civilization, wrote a lot on South Asian kind of thing. Now, with this background, suppose you ask me that let us come to the topic, and the topic is, okay, interrelationships. What do we mean by this? By interrelationships, particularly for the students, कोई आदमी आपसे पूछता है कि भी क्या इंटररिलेशन क्या होता है, इंटररिलेशनशिप या कनेक्टिविटी क्या होती है, तो उसका उत्तर ये है कि इंटररिलेशनशिप इन ये जो साउथ एशिया की 8 कंट्रीज हैं, इनमें आदान प्रदान क्या है, इनमें मिलन जुलन क्या है, ये एक दूसरे से किस तरीके से कोई चीज़ लेते हैं और देते हैं, और इनमें परंपरा कहाँ तक निभाई जा रही है. So this is the theme of the lecture today, and I will just tell you 7-8 paradigms, जो क्षमताएं हैं 5-7, जिसके मुताबिक ये सारा आदान प्रदान का या इंटर रिलेशनशिप का या कनेक्टिविटी का एक माध्यम चल रहा है, उसके मुताबिक ये मैं आपको आगे में बताऊंगा. First of all, the importance of interrelationship draws from the 5,000-year-old or even more or less the same time. This is called the what we call Upanishads. And in Upanishads, when I was reading Upanishads, I found that Upanishad is something saying what we need today. Upanishad is a treasure of knowledge. अगर आपने कभी किसी चीज़ की wisdom को देखना हो very objectively, then because Nepal has been a treasure house of Sanskrit right from the very beginning, whatever was available anywhere was also available in Nepal. In some way, Nepal did a lot of work in the Sanskrit tradition, and we are proud of that. So, उपनिषद में कई उपनिषद हैं. There are normally 28 are known, 52 were named, and out of that there is one Upanishad which is called Tattviya Upanishad. Now in Tattviya Upanishad, the very definition of interrelationship lies, and it says that the concept of Mahas, there in this shloka, the word Mahas comes, and that deals with the interrelationship of all elements. This underlying connection gives us the most basic foundation for studies relating to the universe. And the more we expand the cognitive reality, the greater and wider becomes the scope of knowledge, as gained from the interactions between the various schools and thoughts deriving from the Vedas, and in conversation with the practices and also precepts actually created by the Upanishad. So this is a very important, basic, original definition of interrelationships, because we have completely forgotten about it, and we are going to that now. And then what happens is, in the modern times, when we came to know from Tagore followed it up and said that in Asia we must seek our strength in union, in an unwavering faith in righteousness, and particularly related to knowledge systems. Various knowledge treatises, including Sushmita, Samhita, and he writes, never arrive at any conclusion by studying just one discipline of knowledge or any tradition, only one. This means that those who know only one tradition know nothing, and those who are able to coexist with other traditions are the real persons knowing the whole world of knowledge. Complementary to this interrelated is a large number of lived beliefs and also thoughts, and also the subcontinent, particularly the Asian diversities and its multiple choices. Now, what do we get out of it? After having heard this kind of definition from Upanishad, from Vedas, whom all of us admire so much, what do we get out of it? इस परिभाषा से हमें क्या, what kind of what we call conclusion or indication do we get? The conclusion which we get is relating to that ours is a pluralistic society. जिस कंट्री ने आगे तरक्की करनी है, उसको प्लूरलिज्म में बहुभाषीय होना जरूरी है, नहीं तो वो तरक्की नहीं कर सकता. There is a very good book called Pluralistic Structures and Monolithic Faiths. That most of us are one monolithic. We have faith in one divine, the other has faith in another divine. कोई अल्लाह को मानता है, कोई भगवान को मानता है, कोई शंकर को मानता है. But the structure is always plural, and this structure is the basis of our interrelationship. This structure, which is called the pluralistic structure of society, is the base of the whole thing. Now, this is the first paradigm which brings us to this conclusion that if we are going to adopt something, we have to remain pluralistic in our approach. And Nepal is like this, India is like this, even Sri Lanka are like this. So many things are basically pluralism, they believe in that. Now after this comes the second paradigm, And that second paradigm is, and why over the centuries we have lived up to this. ऐसा क्या कारण है कि हम प्लूरलिज्म में, बहुभाषीय देशों में ऐसे हम होते आए हैं? What is the reason? And the reason for this is कि क्या आपने पढ़ा होगा शुरू में कि क्या हमें क्यों ऐसा एक परंपरा मिली, क्यों हम प्लूरलिज्म के अनुयायी बन गए, हमें क्यों इस तरह की बातें हुई? तो क्या हुआ? उसके एक इतिहास का बड़ा ज़बरदस्त रोल है। वो रोल है कि सदियों से there were 2-3 roots. We call them thoroughfare of roots. Roots means trade routes. पुराने वक्तों में दक्षिण रूट था, फिर नॉर्दर्न रूट था, एक सिल्क रूट भी हुआ। People wanted money from India, Nepal. People used to go to Central Asia to sell their goods, and the whole thing reached up to the Central Asia, including China, Japan, and all that, and also Pacific Asia. So this is a wonderful route through which this kind of connectivity it flourished again and again. And that is why we call it the Silk Route converged. It started and then it converged and met at Takshila, which was in India, and main trade route that followed along with the river Ganges, crossed the Indo-Gangetic watershed, ran through to Takshila, and ultimately emerged in Uttara or Dakshina. The point which I am making by referring to this is that the interaction between these South Asian and Central Asian states was more or less based on trade also. This was not just a kind of thinking that thoughts were just flowing, but it also depended on trade between one country or another country. And that's why we call it commonly and very specifically call it Silk Route, because silk was exported, imported, and the Chinese silk was very much famous for this, and ultimately this whole trade brought interaction. And this route, you will be happy to know, was followed by the preaching of Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha को अपना जो उनका एक उनकी टीचिंग्स थी उसको फैलाने में इस रूट के मुताबिक बहुत बड़ा हाथ मिला, बहुत बड़ा उनके रूट बन चुका था। इसलिए लॉर्ड बुद्धा जो शिष्य थे, जो उसके डिसाइपल्स थे, वो क्या किया, उन्होंने इसी रूट को लेके चाइना पहुंच गए, जापान में पहुंच गए, और इधर उधर जहाँ भी उन्होंने अपने डॉक्टरीज को, अपनी फिलोसफी को, अपनी चीज़ों को बढ़ाना था, वहाँ तक वो पहुँच गए। So this is the second very important what we call route through which the tradition of connectivity or tradition of interrelationship got prosperous or flourished. ठीक है ना? तो ये एक ऐसी चीज़ आई जो कि हमें अपने परंपरा में मिली। हमें आज अगर अभय कुमार जी किसी को कहते हैं जो कि let us be united, let us be something which we can have a faith in the connectivity of these 8 nations, South Asians. He's not talking in vacuum. He's talking because we have earned this thing in our heritage. हमें ये heritage में मिला है और heritage के मुताबिक we have been flourishing. ठीक है ना? So this is a very important point that we, whether we are in Nepal or we are in Pakistan or we are in Bangladesh or we are in Sri Lanka or we are in Maldives, we have got this kind of connectivity through our heritage, and which is called these trade routes of Dakshin, of Uttar, and of Silk Route leading up to China and Japan and through the Pacific Ocean. Okay? So after these two paradigms, I acquaint you with the third one. तीसरा क्या ऐसी चीज थी जिसने हमें एक दूसरे से जोड़ा और कनेक्टिविटी और आदान प्रदान हमें की, वो था वो बड़ा अच्छा रूट है, वो बड़ा अच्छा पॉइंट है, और वो पॉइंट है कि you know, which is suppose somebody asks the students, okay, which is the most important language of which this South Asian continent is proud of? Anybody will say, sir, it is Sanskrit. Because Sanskrit is the root of our heritage. Sanskrit is something through which all wisdom has come through. Sanskrit is something which was the language through which the original, particularly Upanishads, the Veds, the Ramayana, Mahabharata, and particularly all those epics, they were written. Sanskrit was something through which the knowledge spread to the whole world. And after that came Prakrit. When Buddha came, he brought Prakrit into it. अगर आपने कालिदास का शाकुंतलम पढ़ा हो, तो उसमें क्या है? There is a wonderful amalgamation, mixture of Sanskrit and Prakrit. एक कैरेक्टर संस्कृत बोल रहा है, दूसरा जो लोग हैं वो प्राकृत बोल रहे हैं. So this is a wonderful text which tells us that we have never stood or imbibed just one language. It's an amalgamation of 2-3 languages, and that is the beauty of this subcontinent. हम for instance in your country, in this Nepal, everybody speaks 2-3 languages. Similarly, when you come to India, you will find that we are multilingual in our approach. But this does not happen in the West. Why? Because Italy only needs it. Italy, they speak only Italian. We were in French last month, in France last month. People were ignorant. Suppose we ask somebody something in English, he did not understand. He only wanted us to speak French with them. Whereas if a French person or English person or any person comes to India, then he doesn't feel any difficulty, because our people are multilingual. They speak 2, 3, 4 languages, which is a very important factor in this connectivity, in this interrelationship thing. So Sanskrit, Prakrit, Lok Bhasha, Sufi Bhakti poets, promoters, they are the promoters of literary and cultural interrelationships. ठीक है ना? तो ये बहुत बड़ा अच्छा पैराडाइम है कि हम क्यों इंटररिलेशनशिप चाहते हैं? Because we are privileged to know more than 1 or 2 or 3 traditions, and we are indebted to that. We know Sanskrit, we know Prakrit, we know Lok Bhasha, we know Sufi Bhakti poetry. They are the promoters of literary and cultural interrelationships. This is called the language of learned composition, and its influence extended to many areas. Sanskrit, then came Prakrit and Lok Bhashas, and then came, which is a very, very important era. It was called emergence of Sufi Bhakti poets in the medieval India. Let's say, if somebody asks me, I'm a student of literature, तो मुझे पूछे कि भाई सबसे अच्छा टाइम पीरियड लिटरेचर में कौन सा था, तो मैं कहूँगा भक्ति. Because 33 poets developing the same ethos, whether they are writing in Urdu, whether they are writing in Hindi, whether they are writing in Nepali, whether they are writing in Sinhali, they are all devoting to some confluence, and which was called the confluence of Bhakti tradition. Guru, suppose somebody asked you, the other day I was in Punjab, And you will be surprised to know that Guru Arjan Dev, when he compiled Guru Granth Sahib, he said, why we are ignorant? Why I should go here and there? He picked up the best from Indian poets and Indian scholars, 33 or 34. तुकाराम, कबीर, जायसी, इन सब के जो बेस्ट चीज़ें थी उनको लेके उन्होंने गुरु ग्रंथ साहब में डाल दिया। इसलिए गुरु साहब पढ़ो और हमें ऐसा लगता है उनकी वाणी को पढ़ो, ऐसा लगता है we know it because 20% is Kabir, 10% is Jaisi, 5% is Tukaram, and then similarly other traditions. So this is the best example of Sanja, common Granth, जिसमें सब चीजें हैं, and which is therefore this is called the modern Granth because you study Guru Granth Sahib and you find it everywhere. Therefore, even today, when myself and my wife, she is also a teacher, she was education officer, we were invited to Pakistan. There we found that even in the Muslim communities, the bhajans were a part, they were sung by the old ladies. We just worked on folk songs of Kashmir. Kashmir is an area which is a home to Sanskrit, Persian, Urdu, and so many other languages. And there also the folk songs are not just limited to only Persian. They have the tinge of Sanskrit, they have the Sufi songs, I have bhajan built into it. तो ये चीज़ें देख के बड़ा आनंद आता है कि देखो हमारी ट्रेडिशन कितनी रिच है आदान प्रदान में, कनेक्टिविटी में, इंटर रिलेशनशिप में। फिर हमने बाहर से नहीं लेनी इंटर रिलेशनशिप, ये हमारे ट्रेडिशन में ऑलरेडी निजीपन बनी हुई है, हमने तो उसको सिर्फ रिवाइव करना है। इट इज इन आवर ब्लड। व्हाई नेपालीज आर नोन एज द वेरी इनोसेंट नाइस कोऑपरेटिव पीपल। मैंने तो कभी नेपालीज को झगड़ा करते नहीं देखा, बिकॉज दे हैव दैट इनहेरिटेंस ऑफ नोबल आइडियाज, नोबल थिंग्स इनहेरिटेड टू देम। दो हमारे जो दोस्त हैं इंडिया में, वो भी दे आर ऑलवेज very soft spoken, nice, fine, because in the beginning of this whole subcontinent, everything learned originally in Sanskrit and other things they started here. So this is what happened. And after that, in the medieval India, the whole thing started. And after that, what happened was this is called classical languages and South Asian languages. Persian came. Now, confluence of Persian and Sanskrit, it was marvelous. आपको सुन के हैरानी होगी कि कहाँ संस्कृत कहाँ पर्शियन, इन दोनों का मिलाप कैसे हुआ। एक पर्शियन है, एक संस्कृत है। पर्शियन जो लोग आए अरब से आए और उन्होंने आकर के इस सब कॉन्टिनेंट के ऊपर अपनी हुकूमत की, तो उन्होंने सोचा कि why not to mix up with them, and they brought their own culture. And as a result, what happened was that they found the Mughal pattern and so many Akbar's Deen-e-Ilahi and translation of Indian epics into Persian. At that period, it took Indian texts to the whole world. उन्होंने पर्शियन में हमारे एपिक्स को ट्रांसलेट किया और that took them to the whole world. And Abul Fazl का नाम बहुत आता है, and revised the Anwar Suhaili for the Mughal patron Akbar, and his version circulated in whole of the world. There were not only major recensions by Nasrul Shah, Kasafi and Abul Fazl, in print, but also versions that present Kalila and Demima. You know where these people are? They are in Iran. तो बड़ी इंटरेस्टिंग इन्वेस्टिगेशन है जो अभी हमने की है कि हमारा जो कहानियों का जिसको पंचतंत्र कहते हैं, पंचतंत्र का सबसे पहला अनुवाद जाके मिला ईरान में। ईरान के लोग यहाँ आए एशिया में, उन्होंने आके देखा इट्स ए वंडरफुल शॉर्ट स्टोरीज जो विजडम से भरी है, जो पक्षी और वो दूसरे तीसरे एक दूसरे को कहते हैं, बट दे आर फुल ऑफ विजडम। सो दे टुक पंचतंत्र विद देम, translated them into Persian, into their own language, Sahali, and both consistent in style, in intention, distinct from, and that was Panchtantra, both in form and content. So this is wonderful to see how this is called, I call it, I have given the word traveling knowledge. This traveling knowledge between India, between its adjoining countries, between other countries which are a part of SAARC, now 8 countries, it became a constant process. Traveling from one country to another, translation from one country to another, like this. So, so this is the one thing. उसके बाद इतिहास में अच्छे काम भी हुए हैं, ठीक है। We know that of those who attacked India, they did bad things. For example, औरंगजेब का जब नाम दिया जाता है तो सारे कहते हैं was a very bad man, he always destroyed things. लेकिन उसका भाई जो था दारा शिको, he did the marvelous good things also. He translated 52 Upanishads into Persian, into Sanskrit. So Dara Shikoh जो था, he Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan का लड़का, he translated 52 Upanishads into Persian in 1657, and his translation into Persian took the South Asian continent into the prime of fame, and the West world especially, as they were translated from Persian to Latin, then to other European languages. The first written English translation of Upanishads came in 1805 from Kolbuk, the Englishman, who was aware of so many Upanishads. It influenced all major minds of Europe in the 19th century. So look at this trafficking, world knowledge, that Dara Shikoh, contrary to his brother's doings, who was a very cruel king, at the same time this brother immortalized his name by doing good things and by translating from Sanskrit into Persian. And then came, as I told you, the Panchatantra stories, then came Kalila and Demina, then came fables of so many other languages, and also this way the whole thing continued. And the list is endless. I need not read everything because I have to make points so that you know that translation played a great role in reviving the whole thing, and it brought the South Asian contact known to the whole world. And after that, what happened was Sanskrit scholars also agree that literary sources of stories, including Panchatantra, attributed to Kautilya, अर्थशास्त्र का अनुवाद हुआ, और उसके बाद महाभारत को उस लेवल पे लेके गए, and all these things were done. Now with this background, I come to the modern scene with which we are grappling in this country and also in other countries. And this is called SAR, Building Bridges for Cultural Continuity or Connectivity. This is a very interesting, distinct and very important area. It may be studied in the light of above illustrations that the importance of interrelationship between the SAARC countries, I told you already. If for the students' sake, I repeat it. Which are the SAARC countries? South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation. What are the countries? Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. They had existed earlier for a long time. Now the process of building bridges in the area of cultural, literary, educational, socio-economic and political levels, they have started. People of this vast subcontinent have a common history. They have inherited a rich cultural legacy. Many of the languages of the subcontinent are common. And here I quote Dr. Karan Singh, a well-known scholar and also a respected leader, I think not only in India but elsewhere also. And he, last time when he came to address the SAARC countries Sammelan meeting in New Delhi, and he said like this, and I quote, we share Urdu with Pakistan, we share Nepali with Nepal, we share Bengali with Bangladesh, we share Tamil with Sri Lanka, and we share English with everybody else. Therefore, as a memorable SAARC writers conference, when he said this thing, he meant that cultural harmony and peace is the epitome of the interrelationship issue. And he said that now, instead of just dwelling on literature, SAARC countries have been held on the theme relating to culture, environment, education, medical sciences, and at the same time research committees to go deep into the inter-religious program. Now after this, what is happening today? आप अगर मेरे से क्वेश्चन करें कि इतना कुछ आप इन्हें बता दिया, इसका रिजल्ट क्या हुआ है, कुछ इसका रिजल्ट कुछ बना है या नहीं बना है? आपका क्वेश्चन बड़ा मुनासिब है। कर सकते हैं, स्टूडेंट्स कर सकते हैं कि आपने इतिहास बता दिया, आपने 5 या 6 पैरामीटर्स बता दिए कि जो हमें यूनिटी की तरफ, कनेक्टिविटी की तरफ लेके जाते हैं, लेकिन इसका असर क्या है? आजकल कुछ हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा? उसका जवाब मैं इस तरह से देता हूँ कि पिछले 2 वर्षों में 2 क्या ज़्यादा वर्षों में 3-4 चीजें हुई हैं। सबसे पहले तो ये हुआ है कि आई एम द जनरल सेक्रेटरी ऑफ कंपैरेटिव टीचर एसोसिएशन। What is the purpose of this literary association? We work in combination with the university teachers, with the students, with the government agencies, and we do it international level, we do it at the national level. Last year, हमने अपने आप से क्वेश्चन किया कि बहुत थियोरी हो गई। थियोरी से क्या होता है? लोग आते हैं, सुनते हैं, थ्योरी चले जाते हैं। but let us do something practical. तो हमने कलकत्ता में जादवपुर यूनिवर्सिटी में एक वर्कशॉप किया जिसमें 21 नेपाल के स्टूडेंट्स को बुलाया और 21 बाकी कंट्रीज के जैसे बांग्लादेश के, इंडिया के, 2-3 और भी, श्रीलंका के, साउथ से स्पेशली वहाँ के बच्चे आए. And the purpose of this workshop was to produce something from Nepali into other languages. Book का नाम है, book का क्या नाम है? Yes, this is called Call of the Hills. जो किताब हमने निकाली है, इसका नाम है Call of the Hills. This contains Nepali stories, songs, drama. They were brought together by the students of Jadavpur and Southfield College, Calcutta. Darjeeling, sorry, Southfield College, Darjeeling. And the session was full of activities, and ultimately we brought out 3 volumes. One is in English, the second is in Bangla, the third is in Hindi. If you want to have a book, let me know, we can send it to you. हमने जब because I was a part of this, जब foundation जैसे आपके जो authors हैं, I came to know very wonderful stories of Nepali which were brought together, and there was stories from Shiv Kumar Roy, there were stories of Lakshmi Devi Sundas, there were stories, reality by just Jordan Vyasi, and there were about 20-25 stories. Similarly, poems, similarly other things. So this is called the practical ramification or translation of Nepali into English, into Hindi, into Bengali. After that, what happened? ये टीचर विद्वान लोग यहाँ बैठे हैं, वो एक क्वेश्चन करेंगे, और जो मैं भी करता हूँ being a student of comparative teacher, कि हम हमेशा सिमिलरिटीज की बात करते हैं कि कॉमन चीजें ढूंढो, कॉमन चीजें ढूंढो. दिस इज नॉट ट्रू, वो हो भी नहीं सकता, बिकॉज एवरीबॉडी हैज हिज और हर ओन टेम्परामेंट. उन दोनों के स्वभाव में फर्क होता है, नेशंस के एटीट्यूड में फर्क होता है. तो वी शुड आल्सो स्टडी दी अदर पार्ट, दैट इज डेसेंट आल्सो. अगर हम यस करते हैं, स्टडी करते हैं, तो डेसेंट भी तो होता है ना, उसके पीछे भी तो इतना महान काम होता है. वी शुड आल्सो स्टडी द डेसेंट. डेसेंट को लेके हमने एक इंटरनेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस कराई, उसका नाम ही यही था कि विश्वास डेसेंट, particularly familiarizing the flow of literatures of the South Asia. It makes us realize and understand the stream of ideas. And this kind of particularly dissenting, politics of dissent, then disaffections of tribal and women's writings, then came South Asian regions and their religions, then came performing theatre, then came, this all helped us to understand with greater sensibility before we stream into all voices into this commonality of identity as we think of South Asian component. Lastly, I will refer to one point, and that was the conference which we held in Paris. That conference had attracted 15 people. not only from India. I must tell you that I worked hard for that, and I succeeded in collecting representatives from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from Sri Lanka, and from India. Because it was not, I asked two persons from Nepal, because they said funding is not available to them for coming there. I said, okay, we will invite you next time. What was the end result? The end result was that we could get papers, interesting papers there, and those papers were, I just read only 2-3 titles, which will give you the idea of those titles. Yes. This is cultural interrelationships. For instance, wonderful papers like Initiatives for Peace and Narratives in Healing the Subcontinent, South Asia, Love Songs to the Divine, Sufi Music in India and Pakistan, Ramayana as cultural linkages in the South Asian comparativism, cultural politics of Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka, shared cultures and different spaces, conflictual relationship of subjectivity, poetry as a site of cultural resistance in the subcontinent, songs of the nation. This was wonderful. To one person who came from Bangladesh and one from India, they sang the songs, lyrics from India and Bangladesh and also from Pakistan. So that brought a new idiom of understanding, and we came to know that the author of National Anthem of Bangladesh and of India is the same, Tagore, Rabindranath Tagore. Similarly, we came to know that there were so many similarities between Pakistan literature and India literature, and it has spread to other countries. So then contemporary resistance, particularly with regard to women writings, patriarchy, and then locating the Nama, and then strings of love across language, history and space, the music of the subcontinent. So all these interesting things were held there. So lastly, in view of all these illustrations, the point which emerges is that our history spread over 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years speaks of connectivity. Then the translation which was introduced during the Mughal period of Upanishads that talks of connectivity, then interdependence.